Welcome back, band family. Now that you've signed up for 5th grade band, you might be wondering what the next steps are. Step 1 is to watch this video, this instrument fitting video. It's a great video for students and their parents to watch together. It'll help you discover which instruments fit you best. Step 2 is to fill out and submit the instrument fitting results form. That way you can let me know what you've decided after watching this video. The form link can be found in the email that I sent you that also had the link to this video. Or if you don't have that email handy, you can check down in the video description below and you'll find the link to that form. Once you send that form to me, I'll respond and give you more information about the next step after that. Step 3 is to get an instrument. Now, traditionally here at Orono, most families will rent an instrument from Schmidt Music or Growth Music, and that's a great way to get a hold of a quality, reliable instrument. You make a small monthly payment each month, and over time, those monthly payments will go towards the purchase price of the instrument, and you'll own it forever. The nice thing about the rental program, though, is that if something comes up and you need to cancel the rental contract, you can cancel it, turn in the instrument, and you won't owe any additional money. It's especially important this year because since students won't have a chance to try instruments before they make their selection, if something doesn't work out with the instrument you've chosen, the nice thing about the rental contract is you can have options for exchanging one instrument for a different instrument. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, which is especially important this year. Let's get started with step 1, the instrument fitting process. To do this, you'll need 2 bits of equipment. The first is a pencil. So go ahead and grab a pencil. Also, you'll need a mirror. It can be a portable mirror like this, or it can be a mirror on your wall. Whatever you have, I'm sure will work just fine. Over the course of this video, I'll be asking you to participate and to try different things, different ways to shape your face, different ways you can manipulate your hands. And these activities will help you discover which instrument might fit you best. I recommend going into this with an open mind. I've noticed that students who are open to the idea of playing a variety of different instruments usually are much more satisfied with the instrument which ends up fitting them best. Before we start, I've got a question for you about sports. Think about basketball. Is basketball a sport for girls, for boys, or for both? Both, right? Yeah. What about swimming? Is swimming just for boys, just for girls, or for both? For both. The same thing is true of every instrument I'm going to show you today. Every instrument is not just for girls or just for boys, it's for both. For many of the instruments, I will talk about the mouth shape. We call this embouchure. Embouchure is a fancy word that means mouth shape. And the way you shape your mouth or your face can make certain instruments easier or harder. Let me give you an example. Many of the instruments use a face shape that I call the M face. I call it this because it's the same face you'd make if you said M. Try it right now. Make the M face. M. Now make the same M face, but don't make any sound. Perfect. So that's the M face. And for most instruments that I'll show you today, you'll need to make that M face in order to play it. This is also where having that mirror can come in handy. If you hold up the mirror in front of you, check and see what that M face is. Let's try that right now. M. Try gently blowing air while you make the M face, but don't let your face change shape. Don't let your lips blow out in the middle. I want you to firm up the muscles in your chin, but don't let the shape of your face change at all. I'll demonstrate. You'll notice that I firmed up my chin muscles, but the shape of my chin didn't really change. It stayed flat. We want to make sure we're avoiding the bunched chin. The bunched chin happens when your chin bunches up like a golf ball. You know how golf balls have those little dimples on the outside? If your chin bunches up like a golf ball and it has those little dimples, we don't want that. That's called the bunched chin. I'll see if I can demonstrate that. I'm going to make the M face, and then I'll do the bunched chin, and then I'll fix it by going back to the flat chin. Did you notice how my chin changed shape? It was flat at first when I was making the M face, and then I bunched it up, and then I flattened it out again. If you can make that flat chin in front of a mirror, that can help you with a lot of instruments. So it's worthwhile practicing that a little bit. The most important thing is to make sure that your face doesn't change when you firm up those muscles in your chin. Next up, let's talk about finger numbering. We number our fingers in band. The first finger, the index finger, that is our 1 finger. Our middle finger is our 2 finger. And our ring finger is our 3 finger. So if I wanted you with your right hand, that's the hand on this side here, if I wanted you to press down on 1, 2, 3 on your right hand, those are the fingers you would move. If I wanted you to move your first, second, and third finger on your left hand, 1, 2, 3, that's the fingers that you would move. And of course we have our thumbs and our pinkies as well. So make sure you know which hand is your right hand, that's this one, and which hand is your left hand, 1, 2, 3, thumb, pinky. The first instrument I'll show you today comes from the Woodwind family. And remember, is this a boy's instrument, a girl's instrument, or both? Both, of course. This instrument is the clarinet. Ooh. To produce a sound on clarinet, it uses this vibrating reed at the top. It's very, very delicate, but it's made out of bamboo cane. When it vibrates, it produces a sound. To change notes on most woodwind instruments, including the clarinet, we use a certain pattern of fingers. We start with our left hand on top and our right hand on the bottom. We have thumb, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we also have pinkies as well. Let's practice that fingering and see if it's a good fit for you. Grab a pencil and hold it with your left hand on top and your right hand on the bottom. Remember, this is your right hand over here. Left hand here, right hand here. And for now, squeeze with your left thumb and your left first finger, that's left 1. And now I want you to add on each finger after that in a row, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You might have noticed that since we were holding it with our thumb and first finger, that 1 was already down. Let's try it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If that comes pretty easily for you, clarinet might be a good fit for you. The embouchure or face shape you need for clarinet is that M face that we talked about earlier, and you do need to make sure you have a flat chin when you're playing clarinet. If your chin tends to bunch up a bit, you'll have to work to correct that. So if you can naturally make that M face, awesome. If you can firm up your muscles in your chin and keep it flat like we talked about earlier, even better. You'll be awesome at clarinet. Clarinets are a lot of fun to play because they can play really high notes and really low notes, and they play a lot of really fast notes. You'll find that most of the music that clarinet players play is very, very fast and very exciting. The clarinet section is one of the most important sections of the band, and they often have the melody or the most recognizable part of a song. In an orchestra that has string instruments, the biggest and most important section is the violin section. But in the band, it's the clarinet section. The clarinets are kind of like the violins of a concert band. One of the nice things about clarinet is that it fits into this tiny little case. Oh yeah, the whole thing comes apart and fits in this tiny little case, which makes it really convenient to take back and forth. Because of course, we want to make sure we're bringing our instrument home every day so that we can play at night. That's how you're going to get to be really good. And the clarinet is small enough that it fits into this case and it makes it really convenient to take back and forth to school every day. The next instrument I'm going to show you is also in the woodwind family. Remember, will it be a boy instrument, a girl instrument, or both? Both, of course. This instrument is the smallest woodwind. It is the flute. Ooh. The flute is a little bit different than clarinet in that it produces sound in a different way. The flute doesn't have a reed to produce the sound. Instead, air is directed over the lip plate, and that is what causes the sound. The fingering system we use is like all of the other woodwinds, thumb 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The one big difference though is that my right pinky stays down all the time. Grab your pencil, let's try that out. Once again, I have my pencil with my left hand on top, my right hand on the bottom, and I'm holding it with my left thumb 1. But this time I want you to put your thumb of your right hand underneath the pencil and then add your right pinky. Now we're going to add all the other fingers while keeping that right pinky in the same spot. So we already have the 1 down of our left hand. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That might be a little bit tricky to get your right hand to do it. Try it one more time. So we have our thumb 1 of our left hand on top, right thumb underneath, right pinky right here. And we're going to add on the rest of the fingers, making sure that pinky doesn't move. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That can get a little bit tricky as we bring our fingers down in our right hand. The embouchure or face shape that we use with flute is quite a bit different than with other instruments. It's important that we keep our lips very, very relaxed. I want you to try something right now. Take a finger and press it right against your chin. You'll notice that when my finger comes in, it comes right into that curvy spot on my chin, just like this. And that's pretty much what it feels like to play flute. If you press this in nice and hard, that's about where the flute's going to go. It needs to go just high enough, however, that it catches the edge of my lip. So when it comes in, you'll notice that it's catching just the edge of my lip. I want to make sure that my lip is very relaxed as I do this, though. Try this in front of a mirror right now. You'll notice that as my finger comes in, it's basically coming in against my chin, and it squishes my relaxed lip and makes it curve over. If you then gently blow air, that's very much what the flute embouchure is like. Now, the shape of your lips can affect your ability to play flute. Take a look in the mirror right now, and I want you to look at the middle of your top lip. If the middle of your top lip comes down, we call that a teardrop lip, and that makes it pretty hard to play flute. Here's why. As we're playing flute, we want to make sure that we have one small opening right in the middle between our lips. If the middle of your top lip comes down, it will end up touching the bottom lip, and then you don't have one hole in the middle, you'll end up having 2 holes, one in each side. And then the air is going to go in different spots. That makes it really hard to play flute. So if you have a teardrop lip, it's going to be really hard to play flute, incredibly hard. And I would recommend trying a different instrument. Confession time. I have a slight teardrop lip. My lip comes down a little bit in the middle, and as a result, instead of a nice, perfect diamond-shaped opening between my lips, I end up having kind of a flat pancake, and it makes flute easily the hardest instrument for me to play. I feel like I need to work twice as hard at flute as any other instrument just to get to that same level. So if you do have a teardrop lip, I'd recommend a different instrument. You might have the reverse of a teardrop lip, where your upper lip actually goes up in the middle. I'll see if I can find a picture of somebody to show you what that looks like. If you have that shape of your lip, oh man, flute will probably be very easy because your lips will just naturally form that perfect lip shape where you have one small diamond-shaped hole right in the middle between your lips, even though your lips are super relaxed. The next instrument is also a woodwind instrument, and once again, is it a boy instrument, a girl instrument? Of course, it's both. This instrument is the saxophone. Ooh. The saxophone is probably the heaviest of all the instruments. It's so heavy that you pretty much have to have a neck strap to help you support the weight of the instrument, because otherwise it's just too heavy. The weight of the saxophone tends to surprise people a lot, especially students who have never held one before. It is very heavy, and most students find it to be uncomfortably heavy. So just keep this in mind, that it is an extremely heavy instrument, and you'll probably be uncomfortable when you play it. The instrument is also very heavy in the case. So as you bring that saxophone case to school each day and then back home at night, just realize that your instrument as a saxophone is going to be heavier than just about anybody else's instruments. And I see even really large students that are very strong and muscular, I find that they complain a lot about the weight of it. So just realize that you're going to be lugging a really heavy instrument back and forth to school quite a bit. The saxophone produces sound the same way that a clarinet does, in that it has a reed at the top that vibrates when you blow into it. As a woodwind instrument, the saxophone uses the same fingering system as all the other woodwinds. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mentioned earlier that the clarinet parts tend to be very fast and exciting. Saxophone parts tend to be slower and maybe not quite as exciting. So I have noticed that students in middle school and high school will sometimes complain that their parts aren't as exciting as the fast and exciting clarinet parts. So one option I'll just throw out there, what some students find to be more fun is they'll play clarinet in concert band, in the main big band, and then they'll play saxophone in jazz band because they like jazz. So if you're interested in saxophone, but you want to play fast, exciting music, I would actually recommend playing clarinet in 5th grade band, and then later on in middle school and high school, you could easily pick up saxophone as a second instrument in addition to clarinet. There are a few woodwind instruments that I haven't talked about because we don't start them in 5th grade. Instruments like oboe, or bassoon, or bass clarinet. These are options for students to play later on in middle school and high school. If you're interested in one of those, I would recommend actually starting on clarinet first in 5th grade, because once you can play the clarinet, those other instruments are a much easier transition from the clarinet. So oboe, bassoon, bass clarinet, even saxophone, those would all be an easy transition from the clarinet. The clarinet is like the perfect, most universal instrument. Once you can master this, oh man, you can play a whole bunch of other instruments too. Our next several instruments all come from the brass family, and they produce sound in a different way than the woodwinds. All of the brass instruments rely upon the player buzzing their lips. So to buzz your lips, you first need to be able to make that M face. If you have a mirror handy, you can use that as well. Next, you'll need to produce a buzz. Now, without an instrument, it's actually really hard to produce a buzz. I'll demonstrate it for you and you can try it, but just realize that without an instrument, it's really hard to produce this buzz sound. But give it a shot. So to try to do a buzz without an instrument, I'm going to make that M face, and then I'm going to blow a lot of fast air while producing just enough pressure with my lips to make a sound. You'll notice as I did that my chin remained nice and firm and it stayed flat. It didn't bunch up, right? I didn't have a bunched chin, I had a flat chin. Now, I was able to buzz my lips like that because I've been doing this for a very long time. Without an instrument, it might be impossible for you to buzz your lips right now, and that is okay. If you were able to get a sound, oh man, good job. There's different ways we can vibrate our lips. For a brass instrument buzz, it would sound like that. If your lips are very, very relaxed, you might get this instead. That's okay, but that's not really the sound we need for a brass instrument. But if you can do that, that's actually a good starting spot. If you then just firm up your lips a little bit, you can turn that from a loose kind of flopping sound into the buzz we need. Can you see the difference? If you want to practice this on your own, it all comes down to how much pressure you have between your lips. If you don't have enough pressure, you just get air. If that happens, gently touch your lips together and that air will turn into a buzz. Hey, I got a buzz. If you find that your lips are pressed together really tightly, not only will you not get a sound, no air will come out either. I couldn't get any air out. If no air comes out and no sound comes out, yeah, you're squeezing too hard. It's just light pressure between the lips. And it's easy to go the wrong way and have too much pressure or not enough. So like I said, if you can't get a buzz right now without an instrument, don't worry. It's actually really challenging to produce any kind of a buzz unless you have an instrument. The first brass instrument I'll show you today is the smallest member of the brass family. Before I do, I gotta ask you again, is it a boy instrument, a girl instrument, or both? Of course, it's both. It is the trumpet. Ooh. Like all brass instruments, we buzz to get a sound on a trumpet. And the part that we buzz into is called the mouthpiece. On all brass instruments, you can produce different sounds, higher and lower, simply by changing the firmness of your embouchure, of the muscles on your face. We then use the valves to get all the notes in between those open notes that I can produce. To play trumpet, you do need to be able to produce high notes. And so you do need to have a firmness here and a strength of your embouchure to get those high notes. So if you're having a hard time producing that buzz sound right now, trumpet may be a very challenging instrument for you. You may want to think about some of the other larger brass instruments that may be a better fit for your natural ability. Trumpet music tends to be very high, it tends to be very fast, and it's easily heard by everybody in the audience, which means that trumpet players need to be confident. They need to have a lot of self-confidence so that they're comfortable, even though everybody in the audience can clearly hear exactly what they're playing. Think about sports for a second. Imagine you're shooting a free throw and everybody in the crowd is watching you. Do you feel comfortable with that? Do you enjoy everybody watching you? If you do, the trumpet is a good fit for you. If that kind of scares you, trumpet may not be a good choice for you. The next brass instrument I'm going to show you is bigger, and as always, I should ask, is it for girls, for boys, or both? Of course, it's for both. This instrument is the trombone. Ooh. The trombone is bigger than the trumpet, and therefore the sound is lower than a trumpet. Like all brass instruments, we produce a sound by buzzing our lips into the brass mouthpiece. The trombone mouthpiece is bigger than the mouthpiece for a trumpet, and that's one of the reasons why it sounds lower. Like all brass instruments, I can play high and low notes without using any hands at all. Whereas a trumpet uses valves to get all the notes in between those open notes, a trombone uses the slide. Playing a trombone requires a more relaxed embouchure than trumpet. So it's a much more comfortable experience playing trombone. And it's a lot of fun too because it is one of the loudest instruments in the band. So if you want a lot of power, if you love the idea of playing loud notes, trombone might be the instrument for you. Next up, I'll show you a couple more members of the low brass family. And as always, these instruments, are they girl instruments, boy instruments, or both? Both, of course. These are the tubas and euphoniums. Ooh. Now this particular instrument is a euphonium, also known as a baritone. And it looks like a tuba, but it's a little bit smaller. Students who are interested in playing tuba will typically start on euphonium instead, because I found over many years of teaching that students that start on euphonium and then later switch to tuba end up being better at tuba than if I had just started them on tuba at first. Now these instruments are a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, and you might be wondering about bringing this back and forth to school. Don't worry about it. These are actually the smallest instruments when you think about what we're taking back and forth to school. Here's why. If you play tuba or euphonium, you'll typically keep your instrument at home. And you'll use a school-owned euphonium or tuba at school. And you simply need to bring your mouthpiece back and forth each day. So really, when you think about it, the only thing you're bringing back and forth is just this tiny little mouthpiece. So even though the instrument may be one of the bigger instruments in the band, what you bring back and forth each day is the smallest item of all. Euphoniums play the same notes as a trombone, and tubas play similar notes, but they're just lower because the instrument itself is bigger. Whereas trombones have a very powerful direct sound, euphoniums and tubas have a more mellow, blended sound. Tuba is one of the most important parts of the band because it is the lowest sounding instrument and it is kind of like the foundation that the rest of the band is built upon. Think about how well a house would stand up if it didn't have a foundation underneath it. Yeah, so the tubas are one of the most important sections in the band. The music played by tubas in a band isn't always the flashiest or most noticeable, but it's some of the most important because, again, it is the foundation of the band. Before I show you the final brass instrument of our video, I've got a question for you. Boy instrument, girl instrument, or both? Both, of course. This is the horn. Ooh. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Mr. T, that's the French horn, right? Technically, it's called the horn. For some reason, about 200 years ago, Americans started calling this instrument the French horn, and nobody knows why, because it doesn't even come from France. It comes from Germany. So it's kind of stuck. And in today, a lot of people that play the horn will call it the French horn just to avoid confusion. But the true name for this instrument is the horn. The horn is lower than a trumpet, but higher than a trombone. Some of the unique features of the horn are that we play the valves with our left hand. And my right hand is actually inside the instrument. The horn is shaped with a wider throat on the bell, and it's shaped that way because your hand is designed to go inside of that. That's because hundreds of years ago, before they had invented valves, you could use your hand to change the sound of each note. You could actually get different notes simply by directing the air with our hand. Even though we now have valves that we use, we still use our right hands to shape the sound a little bit. And without our hand there, it just wouldn't sound like a horn. I sometimes call the horn the instrument of heroes. I say that for two reasons. First, it's really hard. You have to be a hero to want to play the horn because it is easily the hardest instrument in the band. The second reason I call it the instrument of heroes is because if you listen to a movie soundtrack and that soaring, beautiful melody that happens when the hero bravely gives his or her life to save the world, yeah, chances are that's probably a horn that's playing that melody. There's something about it that just sounds kind of heroic. The reason horn is a challenging instrument is because it's difficult to be accurate. You can easily get the wrong note. So to help avoid that, horn players should have a very good ability to hear the note in their head before they play it. And how do you know if you can do that? Can you sing well? Now, I'm not talking about is your voice pleasing to the ear. I'm talking about if I ask you right now to sing Twinkle Twinkle, would it sound like Twinkle Twinkle? Would the notes be the correct pitches? In fact, if you'd like, go ahead and pause the video right now and demonstrate this. Sing Twinkle Twinkle. Mom and Dad, make sure you're listening. If you're able to play horn well, it's probably because you can sing the notes accurately in your head before you play them. So it is a challenging instrument, and you do need to have that singing ability, that ability to hear the note in your head or audiate before the note comes out. If you're not sure you have that ability to hear the note before you play it, and you're not sure if horn is a good fit, I would recommend try starting on trombone or trumpet. And then later on in middle school, if you think you'd like to try horn, we can always set that up and give you an opportunity to see if that is a good fit for you. Our final instrument family, and the final instrument I'll share with you today, is percussion. Percussion includes a lot of different instruments. It includes drums, but it also includes mallet instruments. Behind me, you can see a marimba and a vibraphone, and these are examples of mallet instruments. They are essentially pianos that we play with mallets. In addition to drums and mallet instruments, percussion also includes many other auxiliary instruments like cymbals, triangle, tambourine. It includes world instruments like congas and djembes. One percussion instrument you won't find much in a concert band is drum set or drum kit. If you're interested in percussion because you want to play drum set, we don't really do that in a concert band or an orchestra. Since there are so many different instruments to learn in the world of percussion, that means that the students need to have a little bit of knowledge coming into the program. This is the only instrument in our Orono band program where you need to already have some knowledge and skills before you can play it. And that primarily relates to these mallet instruments. You need to already have a working knowledge of a piano keyboard before you can play percussion in a school band program. That's because we assume that you already know how to play piano, and I'm not going to take the time to teach you how to play a piano before I teach you how to play these. You already have to have that knowledge. So if you don't already know how to play piano, these instruments are going to be very challenging for you, and it's not going to be a good fit for you. You're not going to have a good time. But fortunately, no other instrument has any other requirements like that. You can play any other woodwind or brass instrument without any prior knowledge. In addition to being able to play piano, the other requirement for percussion is that you need to have good rhythm and good limb independence. We're going to test you on that right now. What I want you to do is to tap your right hand on your leg. I'm actually going to do it on my chest so you can see it, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it. As you're tapping this in time with me, take your left hand, and I want you to snap in time with your right hand's tapping, like this. Go ahead and snap 4 times. Ready? Go. Now snap in between each of your right hand taps. But don't change that tapping of that right hand. Keep it going nice and steady. Let's try this again, and I want you to snap in between 4 different right hand taps. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. How'd you do? Finally, let's have you snap 4 times with your right hand tap, 4 times after the right hand tap. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's try it one more time. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'm sure that every student watching this could eventually teach themselves how to do that. If you sit down and take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, you could teach yourself to do all those different combinations of right hand taps and left hand snapping. But that's not really the point. The question is, were you able to do this instantly with me just now? If you were, fantastic. You have the rhythm aptitude and the limb independence to be successful in percussion. But don't worry, if that didn't work for you, or if you don't have that piano background to play the mallet instruments, don't worry. The other brass and woodwind instruments would be a great fit for you. After you've watched this instrument fitting video, step 2 is to fill out and submit the electronic form that will tell me what the results are of this instrument fitting process. You can find a link to that form both in the email that I sent you that had the link to this video, as well as in the YouTube description below. Once I receive your form results, I'll reply again with more information about the next steps.